Let me say that from the president's point, there is a government committee chaired by the chief of staff that works on the issues of energy security because it's of prime importance in terms of priority to government.
You know, the land whereby the Bian we are wishing bad on us. I says a buying a badness and any party. Like not like opposition party, is praying say a buying be feel. Meanwhile, if we are all having this perception within our minds, oh my, hey, Ghana be Kennedy. And then the way some people do predict things, even though say we are the Rebecca Sawunye. This thing started in 1992, so this is not the first time. And then say drew NPP for so NDC funds the same thing. And it says Anzu drew NDC funds so NPP funds the same thing, the land of possibility. And then let us think, say you know your minus are dreaming with 3 more. What is the future for us? Here is the BJ Show. Do what to subscribe, share the link, tell others about the BJ Show, and the next thing is you do what to leave a comment. You know, Lawyer Tamakro, the NPA boss, which is the National Petroleum Authority, or boss, as some are working in and say, hey, those praying sign and Yama because run a fool on and then. But in fact, rest assured. Even though some Rofonicas and access and Tokobi, 80 made the basign. There will be no fuel coming to Ghana, Krana. Also, we are having 2 months reserve. And on a bit me also minus in terms of electricity, in terms of car we are going to have our fuel. And on yes, I think and I'm quansubo was it a war mine mudada. And then you can see, say, on the international market as a fuel book on the pneumonia there. Was it is not because of Iran and then Israel war, but rather it is because of transporting and I said transportation, and then I'm win neither. Abba. So rest assured, there are going to be a lot of fuel within the system, and then Ghana is having a lot of fuel reserves. Here is the BJ Show. Do what to subscribe, share the link, tell us about the BJ Show, and the next thing is you do what to leave a comment. Yenti Lawyer Tamakro, as some of the two with TV3.
Let me say that from the president's point, there is a government committee chaired by the chief of staff that works on the issues of energy security because it's of prime importance in terms of priority to government. That one, we have the needed stock of petroleum products. 2, the needed stock of what you say electricity in the country. So there's a whole committee that the president has put in place. Thankfully, my minister, who is hands-on, coordinates all these activities to ensure that the country's energy security is not compromised at any point whatsoever. Now, what we have done, obviously, at our end, is that thankfully we have enough stock currently in the country. It's not like on the sea or something. Currently, we have enough that, quote unquote, if we don't get any coming in, at least for 2 months, we can have the needed, what shall I say, fuel products to keep this country going. But it's also important to make the point that the bulk of our petroleum products is imported, the bulk. In Ghana today, we have thermal oil refinery that is supposed to do 45,000 barrels of crude daily. We also have Central refinery that is supposed to do additional 40 to 45,000 barrels of crude daily. We also have some smaller refineries that will do 4,500 barrels. These are quite small, And however, these refineries are not, quote unquote, producing as expected. So there's a heavy reliance on products from abroad. Thankfully, our neighbor, Nigeria, through Dangote and others, also have products. And immediately, you cannot say that they are directly impacted, save the cost of what you call crude oil. You'll notice that crude oil prices today have moved from $60 to almost $74, $78. Now, the reason is really not because crude oil production had fallen. No. Almost all the major production ends are producing. So Saudi Arabia is still producing. Yeah. The problem has come about largely because of what you call vessel availability. Now, you'd also notice that one of the major transport ends or hub when it comes to tanker movement and others, particularly from the Arabian Sea into the open sea, had to do with the Strait of Hormuz, which borders Oman, Iran, and some other countries, Kuwait and the rest. And you know, those are where they produce more of the natural gas, more of black gold, among other things. And so once you have that place almost becoming a theater of military prowess, who is mighty and who is not, it will impact on who and what vessels are willing to move products on that corridor. And so now the bigger problem is the issue of vessel availability and also the insurance that you need to pay, because once there are potential for anything military-wise, persons who transport these products are much concerned. And so you are likely to pay higher insurance premium even to get your product moved within because of the risk associated. And so the real cause in terms of the increase in the price is really not what I'll say lack of production, but the process of moving the product. So the freight cost is really what is raising the price from $60 to $74. That's really where the problem is coming.
So that is you say the risks that would be involved if you were transporting via the Strait of Hormuz. That's what will put an extra premium on your insurance and drive the cost up.
Because one of the border country is Iran.
Okay.
And then Oman, Kuwait, and the rest on that stretch. And so once you have that imminent danger, you want to underwrite the risk. And so you pay higher premium for it. And so that is really where the problem is coming from, and not necessarily a cut in production. Now, unlike countries like Russia and others that produces more, Saudi Arabia and co, they are not really the center or the epicenter of the conflict. It is Iran. And because of the movement and vessel availability among others, that is really where the impact is coming from. But you cannot also discount the fact that the conflict in and of itself will have an impact on the pricing. But if you look at it globally, the greater impact is coming from the cost of freight, of moving product within. And you know, the interesting part is that it's the shortest route into the open sea. So most shipping lines prefer using that route, which is cheaper and shorter, because the shorter the distance, the lower the cost. And so if you have to divert into other ends to get to the markets in Europe and the Asian countries and others, it will cost you more. Because a journey that can, say, take a week, if it's going to be 2 weeks, it will cost you more. And those people are not for that Christmas. They'll put the price, the cost that they are incurring onto the price of the product. And so basically, now what we are hoping for, and at this point, I want to activate my belief in the sense that, you see, China, Russia are critical allies of Iran. China depends a lot on its crude consumption on Iran. Russia obviously does its own thing, but it's a key ally of the Iranian current regime. I've already read in the news interventions from Putin, the Chinese leaders, among others, to keep that particular place open up for further transport. My hope is that at least in the next 2 weeks, we'll have a better and deeper appreciation of the actual impacts of what the issues are. The immediate fear is the threat of closure of the straits. The immediate threat to close it.
In fact, the impression is that that is, pending. That's the next step that we're going to see from Iran.
So if you look at how, in terms of the what do you call the geology of the place, more or less, it's Iran and Oman. So Iran cannot take a unilateral decision that we are completely closing that end.
All right, and you can take a look on your screens to better visualize what it is that we're talking about. The countries in question there. You see where Iran is. If we can make it a bit smaller, you'll get a better appreciation of what we're referring to, the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, but do carry on.
So thanks for the picture. But you see, you'll notice that Oman is on one side, Iran is on the other side. So Oman will not permit, because you see, once they use that, it is income to those countries, because the ships and others pay for the use of that end. And so what is going to happen is that Oman is not going to allow for a unilateral decision to just close that end completely. Again, like I pointed out, the Chinese have a lot of interest in terms of movements of goods and other services, or movement of goods, more or less, to the Chinese and other South Asian countries. And so they also have an interest to ensure that the passage is not closed. And so there are a lot of interests involved, and more importantly, the Europeans as well, because then, beyond crude, it's easier for you to move liquefied natural gas and others into Europe to power households and others around that corridor. So completely having it closed will be quite an interesting. On the Saturday evening, there was an emergency UN Security Council meeting.
That's right.
I observed it because, I've become my mind is on these matters in recent times, just to ensure that I have a further. And from the UN Security Council meeting, it does appear that there's a greater call for diplomatic intervention than a full-blown, full-scale war within the region. Thankfully, Oman, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and co within the region appears to have adopted a strategy for less military intervention. Now, the danger is if the whole Gulf end is engulfed in war, then production itself will be affected.
So that's Lawyer Tamakru and the NPA boss, Asama Okanono. We are praying that as a country, as a nation, we are going to have our own mindset, because we are having tema oil refinery or so. It's one or more thing. Hey, politicians, but at the end of the day, your corner find their bar, this is very, very serious, and then we have to work on that. And then it seems like we are depending more on outside fuel near the other. We are having fuel within the system. So what are we doing? Here is the VJ show. Do well to subscribe, share the link, tell others about the VJ show, and the next thing is you do well to leave a comment.